I know, I've driven that route.
Okay,
It does.
I have 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And first want to welcome everyone here this evening. We have several students with us and also applicants for our Park and Planning Commission and a couple other gentlemen that are going to be talking with us. So first, just a friendly reminder to all of us, if you have cell phones with you, please turn them on silent or off or airplane mode so they don't disrupt the meeting. And as is our tradition, please join me in Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that, Happy New Year. This is our first council meeting of 2018. This is January 2nd, and hopefully you all had a wonderful, blessed, and safe holiday season. So first, I'd like to make a few introductions. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor. To my left are council members, Patricia Thoele, Pam Mortenson, Mike Molitor, Shannon Bruce, and then we have our city engineer with WSB, Paul Hornby. Our city clerk is Kris, and our director of administration is Cassandra Tabor. And then to my right, I have our city administrator, Mike Barone. Brian Grimm is our finance director. David Abel is our community development director. And then sitting in for Ron Beatty, who is our regular city attorney, is Andrew Biggerstaff with Kennedy and Graven. Thank you. And then also Chief of Police Paul Falls is not here this evening, and sitting in for him is Sergeant Mike Kokish. So welcome all of you newcomers, and again all of you in the audience. So first we're going to approve the agenda, and there's one change. We're going to be removing consent agenda number G, and that'll come back for final resolution probably at our next meeting. Other than that, I have no additions or changes to the agenda. Are there any other changes? With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented with 4G removed?
So
That was a tie. All right.
I'll second that.
All right. Ms. Mortenson made the motion and Ms. Bruce seconded that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have special presentations. We have several Planning and Parks Commission applicants here, and we're going to do an interview. And then later on, we have two very easy questions. We will make it as painless as possible. I will tell you, we do have a little trap door. If you go too long, we do. No, just kidding. Anyway, so we will start with Planning and Parks applicants. And do you want to add anything to that? We have, we're going to start, you know what? I'm going to start with Mr. Gary Vars. He is an applicant for our Park Commission, actually only applicant for our Park Commission, so.
That doesn't mean it's a shoo-in.
Well, maybe not a shoo-in, but I think you will be appointed, so.
That would be good.
But.
I've enjoyed being on the commission
Good.
for 3 years, and I enjoyed being part of the comprehensive plan team, which was actually a real highlight. It was a lot of fun, learned a lot, and hopefully contributed a little bit. It was great. So your two questions.
Two questions, and you answered some of it already. Describe your experience in participating or dealing with local government.
Well, this is pretty much it. I have, many years ago, had some issues over when I lived in Roseville, or actually Shoreview at that time, and across the street from us was a wonderful open area that when I went on vacation, I came home, a developer had come in and plowed the whole thing under and got rid of about 500 trees and so on. So we had a few nights in front of the city council and so forth, but that's the extent of my municipal experience, other than the 3 years on the planning commission here.
Oh, that didn't sound very good. Okay. Okay. No. We just, okay. That wasn't you. We heard a boom. So, all right. Yeah. All right.
But I have been forever been involved in community activities, church activities, YMCA, Outward Bound, Sierra Club. So I've got, I think, a pretty extensive background in dealing with organizations that have been involved with park-like activities, open space, not specifically parks other than your organization here, but I am a great believer in the outdoors. I like the fact that this community recognizes the need for parks and open space and the need to have them located where the community can take advantage of. That's one of the reasons I got involved to start with. We moved here 21 years ago thinking that Minnetrista was a park. And we live on the northeast side of the village, the city. And it still is. It's wonderful up there. And anyways, I'd like to do whatever I can do to help keep it that way.
All right. And then the last question, Mr. Vars, is what's your motivation for serving on the commission?
I want your job, Lisa.
You're welcome to it.
My motivation is truly to see that Minnetrista continues to be the kind of a community that it has been for the 20 years I've been here. I really believe that the current council, as well as I know you, and the previous ones that we have worked with, have really taken a serious attempt at keeping this community to be rural with well-planned development. I'd like to be part of seeing that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so we have 4 applicants for the Planning Commission, and I'm just going to take them in order, I believe, in order that they came in, if I'm not mistaken. We have Robert, if I mispronounce your last name, forgive me, Robert Raven? All right. All right. So again, the first thing, describe your experience in participating or dealing with a local government.
Well, nothing with this local government, but I am in property management is my profession. I work for a company that has apartment buildings throughout the Twin Cities, and I am a part of our construction department. So I've dealt with cities as big as Minneapolis to New Hope to Woodbury, and as far as dealing with the city for permitting for construction and things like that. As far as, like I said, I've never dealt with you guys. I just moved here in July, so I wanted to be a part of what happens here in the future.
Oh, good. And welcome, since you're a newcomer. And so what's your motivation for serving on the commission?
Well, like I said, I just moved here, and I have 2 little kids, 2 and a 5-year-old, so I plan on being here for a really long time. And the reason we moved out here was partially because it is the way it currently is, but also because I understand that it's great to be here. There's going to be continued development and growth, and kind of adding my area of expertise to helping keep things sort of the way they are, but also make it more economically viable for the future and have the growth that's necessary.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
I've also been a part of association boards. I've run association boards, so I have dealt with things of that matter in the past as well. So.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for applying.
Thank you.
So next we have, I believe it's Peter Vickery.
Careful of that trapdoor. Well, I find myself, having served on the Planning Commission as the second senior member in 3 years, which I'm kind of surprised by. And this is my first experience with city government. I've read every packet that I've received, and I've gone to see every project and building that has been proposed. I attended the weekend planning seminar by WSB, which was very helpful. I've studied the online planning guides, and I attended the police academy, which, while not directly tied to the planning commission, I learned a lot about the city government, and just struck by how important all that is, and what a responsible job that is. I rode on the first bus tour, and unfortunately I couldn't attend the second, which I understand was different, and so I hope that we keep doing those. I've learned a lot from all of you, and of course particularly Laura Santone, the chairman of the Planning Commission. I have also, I was on the board that developed the comprehensive plan, and I felt that was very important as part of my job as a planning commissioner to really understand the direction and have some input on that too. So those I think were my main experiences with city government.
All right. And what is your motivation for serving on the commission?
Well, my family has lived here for 20 years also, and I do really enjoy the feel of Minnetrista. You do feel like you're on the edge of the metro, and it's just very relaxing to come home and see the fields and trees. And so I want to, I think it's really embodied in the comprehensive plan of trying to keep as much open space as we can, but also guide development so that our citizens can do the development that they want, but that we still keep that feel that is so special to Minnetrista.
Okay, and anything else you would like to add?
Well, I've learned a lot from individual things, some of them good, some of them not so good. I was very pleased with the watershed development that really was quite a collaboration of different government organizations, and I liked that quite a bit. The sober house was quite a challenge. The neighbors, of course, were concerned, and I think that's actually worked out much better than we had thought, so I'm pleased with that. I also learned that the most challenging things we have are the lakefront issues. Of course, that was embodied with the Minneapolis Avenue tear down and decisions on that. So there are limits to what we can do, but it seems like by and large we are able to kind of work out compromises and avoid kind of direct conflict. So I think that's been very good. And, I've always tried to be very respectful of anybody that comes to the commission, of course, especially our residents. And I think with that we can work out virtually everything.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Vars.
Thank you.
And so our next applicant is Mr. Gary Pettis. I'm going in order of receipt of the applications, just in case it doesn't help you any. So again, describe your experience in participation or dealing with local government.
My experience with local government is that I have high teens of experience with the park commission here. I can't remember exactly how many years, but it's somewhere around 17 or 18 years. In the last 2 years, I've served on a planning commission, which was a step up for me and something I was glad I had the opportunity to do, and I look forward to doing again. Other local government, nothing outside of a lot of work with charities. I'm a hospice volunteer in this area. I cook and administer a Christian Compassion ministry in this area, and through the years I've coached and been involved in all of the youth sports and activity in here. We've only been here roughly 25 years. And,
One of the newcomers. No, just kidding.
well, it seems like that.
Yeah. And what's your motivation for serving on the commission?
I think my motivation is the ability that we have as public servants of serving the community that I've noticed as being a park commissioner, to really show the people of Minnetrista how
a good local government should work. And given the opportunity to listen to their concerns, even though a lot of times the projects we work on, the reports we get from staff make it very clear that this should be passed or rubber stamped and go through along with our ordinances. But listening to the things that the community is telling us, it gives us an opportunity to work with the builder or someone else with whatever going on. And sometimes make some changes that make it dovetail in so that it fits in better with the wants and the needs of the people that are involved or around in this community. And that's very rewarding. And when you get phone calls or an email or something like that, it also is very rewarding.
Okay. Oh, good. And anything else you want to add?
I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pettis. And then we have, let's see, Paul Stone. Mr. Stone.
Thank you very much.
So again, the question is, describe your experience in participating or dealing with local government.
So my real experience, I'm the son of a mayor of a small town. That's many, many years ago. I'm the grandson of a state representative. So I really cut my teeth on being part of communities, giving back to communities at a young age. As I went through my career, I sort of used that to serve on different boards, nonprofit boards I'm currently part of, whether it be church boards. And I also have served the last 2 years on a risk advisory board to the Super Bowl 52 host committee. So I found different ways that I can give back, not only to local communities, but to the greater community of Minneapolis-St. Paul as well.
Okay, and what's your motivation for serving on the commission?
So I've been a citizen, lived here for 14 years. My wife and I raised our family here. And my job actually took me away from Minnesota quite often, and I really never had the time to devote to sort of a regular full-time volunteer thing. And so I recently retired, took an early retirement. I'm currently looking for a little something to do, and I have started volunteering at the West Tonka Food Shelf. I also have an interest in moving the community forward and finding ways that I can contribute to the betterment of the city of Minnetrista.
Great. And anything else you would like to add?
I just would just talk a little bit about, I have extensive leadership experience with a Fortune 100 retailer, and especially in the area of enterprise risk, where I spent the last 5 years really trying to define strategic risk for an organization as they do their strategic planning. And I really think that that skill set could be a huge help, could be an advantage to planning commission as they look to the future and trying to avoid some of the pitfalls that potentially could be before them. So I would just add that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Stone.
Thank
So
you.
we won't be discussing this right now. That comes under our business items, and then we'll be making those appointments. So stay tuned, stay in your seats, and we'll get to that shortly. So next we have that concludes our special presentations, and next we have persons to be heard. We do have 2 gentlemen here this evening that would like to address the council. We have Mr. Russ Hilk and Mr. Ronald Hilk. If you, so under persons to be heard, I'm going to ask that you come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the council. We may or may not take action, depending on how difficult it is. And if we have to or want to or feel it's appropriate, we can then also direct staff to bring back some information for a future meeting. So with that, Mr. Russ Hilk, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mayor. May I approach with a handout?
Yes, hand it to him and then we'll hand it down. Thank you.
My name is Russ Hilk. My address is 5025 Bedford Avenue in Edina, Minnesota. Mayor, council members, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to bring to your attention what I believe is a public safety issue. If you're familiar with the Phelps Boat Access, it's a wonderful entry point to Lake Minnetonka that includes as part of it a parking lot. And on that parking lot, in that parking lot, is a sign that prohibits the parking of vehicles without a trailer. Now, as an avid outdoorsman in the summer, having a boat landing where a trailer is required does make a lot of sense. However, boating in Minnesota winters isn't nearly as popular. Instead, we enjoy activities such as ice fishing, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing, where a trailer isn't required. However, this ordinance or sign is creating an unsafe condition because to ice fish or to walk, to cross-country ski or to snowshoe, you need very little ice. But to park a vehicle on the ice, it requires a much stronger sheet of ice. By forcing people out of that parking lot, current conditions, people are parking on the ice right out in front of the boat landing. For those of you who've ever launched a boat at a boat landing, you understand that that water is particularly deeper to allow a trailer to release from the boat. We have situations where you'll have up to a dozen vehicles parking out on the ice right next to an empty parking lot. So what I propose tonight is to take action to change a sign. We're going to change a street sign to allow for residents, people who want to enjoy the lake, to park safely. This isn't a big proposal. This isn't an expensive proposal. I'm talking about changing a sign. And this isn't just a public safety issue for the people who choose to park on the lake. It's a public safety issue for the sheriff, for first responders, for police, for fire, for anyone that would have to respond to a vehicle breaking through that ice. As we know, the rental fish house business is growing. A lot of those people lack ice safety experience. And you may have people being forced out onto the ice when conditions aren't safe. It's much easier to park your vehicle next to 4 other trucks. While the first guy may have been 1 foot from the shore, the next guy's 10 feet, the next guy is 15 feet. And before you know it, like lemmings, they've now created an unsafe environment where people could get hurt. And we're not just talking about fishermen or outdoorsmen. There are families that enjoy this landing every day. So in conclusion, I would like to ask that you take into consideration the option to change this sign to allow for parking without trailers only during the winter months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So just kind of a little bit of background. The sign at, this is the Tuxedo launch site. It's right off of Tuxedo Boulevard. And there's a sign and it says no parking. I mean, I'm not sure exact wording, but it says you have to have a trailer to park there. So the police have no option or choice but to give somebody a ticket if they park there with a car only. The reason this sign is there for trailer parking only is because during the summer months, we are required to provide a certain number of trailer boat, if you will, boat trailer parking for Lake Minnetonka. However, as Mr. Hilk pointed out, during the winter months, there is no boat trailers, and so it would make sense to maybe change the sign, and it might say boat trailer parking from March 15th through October 15th only. And then after that, anybody can park there. Right now, the police have no choice but to give them a ticket because of the signage that's there. Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, and Mayor Whalen, Council, just to talk, I did not get a chance to meet Mr. Hilk, or I don't know if that's your uncle or your father, that was also stopped by City Hall in the last couple weeks of December. What he's talking about makes perfect sense for us to do, but as the mayor mentioned, that if somebody calls and complains that somebody is parking there without a trailer, the police kind of have no option. We don't necessarily, as a police department, go out and look for those violations, but if they're called into us, again, we really don't have any option other than to ticket. And I don't know if they were the victims of a ticket or not, but
I think so.
but what he's talking about makes perfect sense. So I did have a chance to talk about this with Chief Walls, who unfortunately is not here tonight, to kind of give his 2 cents worth on that conversation he had with one of the Hilks. But we will be able to, I hope, in the near future, bring something back to the city council and kind of rectify the situation. I don't know the exact dates, what they'll be. One of the items that Chief Walls mentioned is maybe we have at the same dates as we have for our winter parking or something like that. It could be when ice houses have to come off. You know, the
I think
end
it's
dates,
March 15th.
or whatever, March 30th or whatever date it is. So we'll try to come back with something that makes a lot of sense, and then hopefully remedy this situation for them and others. So.
It should just be a simple resolution that we change the sign. I don't think we even have to do an ordinance change. It just simply would be a sign.
I believe you're
Change.
correct, Mayor.
So maybe we could bring that back in 2 weeks. I
We
mean,
can
that
certainly
doesn't
talk
seem-
about it at a staff meeting tomorrow, and
Okay.
then hopefully again bring something back to the council to consider that kind of will. We don't want too many boats going through the ice.
Right.
In the winter, we know that doesn't happen, but we don't want any cars going through the ice either, so, which could happen.
Okay, so we'll bring that back.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the other Mr. Hilk, you don't need to say anything, or?
So I think you covered it very well.
All right, thank you.
I will just throw one comment out.
Then you have to come to the podium real quick.
Hi, I'm Ronald Hill. You just met my son Russ. I live at 16770 Baywood Terrace in Eden Prairie. And have been fishing on Minnetonka ever since I gave up a number of years ago on Laconia because the fishing was better here. Not real big, but it's fun. And that particular spot, I have gotten tickets. Actually, quite a few years ago already, and I would have thought this would have resolved itself by now. But the officers, whoever we meet there regularly, because if you park there, you will get a ticket, usually within 15 minutes from when you park, because somebody informs the officers to do their job. The one point I would make is, like my son mentioned, in this last year, some of your pictures show all these vehicles. That was on the 26th of December.
Right.
There was not a lot of ice. I was surprised they were there. But it was families renting these fish houses, so there were little kids involved. And you wouldn't want to be, at that time, there had been 5 casualties or drownings in Minnesota going through early ice. And this is a perfect setup to have a disaster.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring it to the attention, not only so I don't have to walk, there is no place to park within a mile of
Right.
access on the streets.
Yeah.
There is no place. I can't walk that far. And anyway, if you decide not to change your sign, you could rent a sign like the sheriff has that says, ice conditions unsafe, bring your trailer.
Sure. Bring your trailer. I don't have anybody else signed up under persons to be heard, so that would conclude our item number 3, and we'll move on to our consent agenda items. They consist of A, approve our work session meeting minutes from December 4th, 2017. B is approve our regular meeting minutes from December 4th, 2017. C is approved closed session meeting minutes from December 4th, 2017. D is approve our claims. E is approve open book meeting for Wednesday, April 25th, 2018. And F is a resolution to accept improvements and authorize the final payment for our 2016 mill and overlay project. And G was removed. H is approve our first amendment to the subdivision agreement for Woodland Cove 3rd edition. And I is a resolution to approve correcting certain legal descriptions contained in resolution number 45-88. And J is a resolution to approve an MOU with IUOE, if you know all of those acronyms, Local 49 Public Works Union for 2018 health insurance benefits. Is there a motion or any discussion? Otherwise, a motion to approve.
I'd like to pull item J.
That would be, okay. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, H, and I. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And Ms. Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Item J is about tiered contribution levels increasing for the union, and I also understand it's for all non-union employees of the city as well. And I don't remember ever seeing these tiered contribution levels before the council, before the budget was passed, and I was curious to ask Councilmember Mortenson and Molitor if they had seen the tiered rates prior to the budget being passed.
It doesn't increase the budget.
I'm asking Councilmember Mortenson and Molitor.
Why are you asking only 2 people?
Well, I assume because you were on the personnel committee and Councilmember Thoele was on that committee, that
Right.
the 2 of you had seen them, but the 3 of us, I don't believe, had ever seen the tiered rates.
Well, maybe we
prior
could
to the
ask,
budget, and I'd like to know if they saw them prior to the budget.
I did not remember seeing the tier, however, I do remember hearing a percentage, and I did talk to Mike Barone about it.
I had not seen the rate.
So,
So when we
the
approve-
point is, let me finish, and then I can, the point is, this states that these tiered rates were approved by the council, and the council hadn't seen the tiered rates.
correct.
So that's not correct, that these tiered rates have not been approved by the council.
Mayor and Council, those items were approved on December 4th. It was item number 4N in your packet, approval of renewal of health insurance provider as health partners. In the information, we showed the tiered rates.
At what meeting were those tiered rates shown to the council?
The December 4th, 2017 council meeting.
And can you show me where in the packet those were presented? Because I never saw them, and
Item
Councilmember
4N.
Molitor doesn't remember seeing them either.
Item 4N is the approval of renewal of health insurance provider as health partners.
Was that a consent agenda item?
Correct.
One thing too.
Then there was no discussion about them. And some of these rates are going up 36%.
Okay, hold on, just a second. So the tiered rates are a new item, as Mr. Barone pointed out, in the packet on December 4th. However, the overall amount that the city participates in
Correct.
is not going up. In other words, the tiered rate was implemented because it seemed more fair versus giving everybody the same amount. And so when you add in the tiered rate, it still comes out the same or even less.
So,
So
Mayor,
there is no fiscal impact
No.
to the city?
no, and
That was my second question, was whether there was a fiscal impact to the city.
no, there shouldn't. In fact, there could be a cost savings to the city overall.
The majority of our people are on single coverage, and that's going from 1,100 to 900.
Okay, that was my
So we're just
second
trying, the
question.
rates are going up so much that we're trying to help people that have families stay, our rates are going up 17%. So we're just trying to split the baby a little differently as far as.
So, Mayor, Council, if I can piggyback a little on what Mr. Grimm is saying. So, in our budget for 2018, we proposed a slight increase to pay and benefits for all city employees. That was approved by the council when the budget was approved. We also put before you in our packet on the December 4th meeting some information about how the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan was 23%, the PEEP was 28%. To go again with Health Partners was 17.6%. That was our smallest increase. We are not asking the city council to raise the amount of total dollars being provided for benefits. In fact, that for sure will stay the same, even though we had a slight increase budgeted for it. And in fact, will probably go down because of our tiered rate structure that we're implementing it. We also noted in our report that there's probably, of public sector employees, there's probably about 70% now that have gone to tiered rate structures. That's according to Health Partners, who administers a lot of public health, sector health plans. And so we did not ask for an additional increase because of this. And like I said earlier, I think this will probably end up saving us some money.
Okay, that's fine. It would have been nice to know that before.
It was in the packet.
seeing this.
It was in the packet in December 4th.
Well,
And
two
then-
of us missed it, and it was on a consent agenda item, and it wasn't, the tiered rate structure wasn't called out like it was on.
Also on
this.
consent agenda items, you can always call staff and ask them about any item on the consent agenda
And
or,
that's-
or any item on the agenda for that matter.
It's fine. I would have just liked to have a little more information prior to this.
We put this on the consent agenda because we were not asking for an increase. In fact, like I said, I think it even states it in the report. I believe it states it that this may end up saving us some money long-term, so.
And it would have been nice if that said that in this memorandum, that there was no fiscal impact, because I wouldn't have even raised the issue if I had known there was no fiscal impact. So,
Yeah.
Again, I would suggest that when you have concerns about an agenda item, please ask the questions of staff because they can get you those answers too. And you can still raise it at the council level if you
and
want
I
to.
prefer to ask my questions at the council meeting, because I
Okay.
think other council members can learn things from questions that we ask of each other, so.
Right. Okay, so with that, we have consent agenda item J then. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that then. Are there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to our business item. And our first item is approve our annual city council appointments and designations.
Chris, did you want it, or do you want me to take it?
Either
Well,
or, that's fine.
Okay, well, I'll let Chris chime in if I miss something, but in front of you, in your packet, is the appointments and designations for 2018. Ms. Linquist gave you a description of all the commissions, committee, organizations, et cetera, and when they meet and how often they meet. We also gave you the 2017 appointment and designation status, and the 2018, which is exactly the same as the 2017. So at this point, we're going to ask that the council discuss them amongst yourselves, obviously. If you want to make any potential changes to the appointments for 2018, we'd be happy to make any changes that you see fit your schedules better or whatever the reason might be. And so I don't know how the mayor wants to do this. If you want to just ask for exceptions instead of go through them one by one, since we have the same councils we did last year. Maybe leave them all the same unless somebody brings up an exception or a suggestion to do something different than what was done in 2017.
I just have one question for Mr. Molitor. I know you said you do the LMCD for a year. Will you continue, please?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Does everybody else, are you okay with the appointments you had last year? Would you like to continue those?
I have a recommendation, a request for a change. Having served as acting mayor for the past 3 years, as you all know, it's a very demanding job. I would like to recommend that...
The acting part or the mayor?
Yeah, well, both. It takes a special skill set.
Yeah.
But I would like to recommend that Councilmember Mortenson be appointed as acting mayor for 2018, since she has the most years of experience serving on the city council other than myself.
Ms. Mortenson, would you?
I briefly discussed this with Patricia, and I would be honored.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that? I'm fine? Okay. I know it's a very strenuous job. All right. Okay, so with that, we have as acting mayor, Ms. Mortenson. Economic Development Authority are all 5 council members. The Personnel Committee will remain with myself, Ms. Thoele, and Mr. Barone. The Planning Commission is on a rotating basis, and all 5 of us. Park Commission member, or liaison we'll call it, is also on a rotating basis, all 5 of us. The Police Communications Committee, or the Public Safety Committee, is actually by contract, the mayor, myself, Police Chief Paul Falls, and City Administrator Mr. Barone. Our Fire Advisory Committee for St. Bonifacius is Councilmember Bruce. our Fire Advisory Committee for Mound is also Councilmember Bruce, myself, and Mr. Barone. And the Northwest Hennepin League of Municipalities is myself. Regional Council of Mayors is myself. Lake Minnetonka Conservation District is Mr. Molitor. Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Liaison is myself. The Pioneer Creek Watershed Management Commission is the appointee, Councilmember Bruce, and the alternate, Councilmember Mortenson. The Gillespie Center appointee is myself. West Tonka Community and Commerce is Councilmember Mortenson. The Steering Committee and Comprehensive Planning Committee, I think that's done with now, but should we still make those appointments?
We should keep it, Madam Mayor and Council, because we haven't officially been through the complete process. We just finished up our public comment,
Okay.
So it's still not completely completed
Okay,
yet.
so that would be Mr. Molitor and Ms. Mortenson. Is that okay?
Mhm.
And then also, do we need to then appoint the commissioners that were on it, or just the council?
Just the council.
All right, thank
It's
you.
still technically there.
Okay. And then Mr. Gary Peters will be our appointee as the Assistant Weed Inspector. It's always interesting. And then the only other difference would be the authorized depository signors will be myself, and then Ms. Mortenson and Brian Grimm, Michael Barone, and Cassandra Tabor.
And the only other addition I will make, Mayor and Council, for the Personnel Committee, to formalize Mr. Grimm and Ms. Tabor as members of the Personnel Committee. I'd like to include them in the 2018. Probably should have been on a 2017, but
Right.
they weren't. So.
Okay.
So we will make that adjustment if the Mayor and Council is fine with that.
Okay.
And just one question on the, maybe I'm getting ahead here. On the official newspaper, do we need to add the Waconia Patriot?
No, you generally just appoint one, and that's the
Oh,
one that
yeah,
serves
okay.
the most readership. So,
Okay.
not that we don't send stuff to them, we do, but we need to have an quote official paper.
Sure.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, then, is there a motion to approve these designees as presented?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. So next we have our appointments for our park and planning. So we'll start with our park commission. It's pretty easy. We have one applicant for one open position, Mr. Gary Vars, who is currently on the park commission and being asked to be reappointed to the park commission. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to appoint Mr. Gary Vars to the Park Commission?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Thoele made the appointment and Mr. Molitor seconded that. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. And next we have our Planning Commission appointments. We do actually have 4 vacancies. We have 2 commission vacancies, and then we have 2 alternate vacancies. If you recall, several years ago, we implemented the alternate positions, and it actually last year it worked out very well because we had 3 applicants for 2 positions, and then actually for 4 positions, we had 3 applicants. 2 were then appointed to the Planning Commission, and 1 was appointed as our alternate. Then we had, very early on, we had a planning commissioner move out of the city, and so she resigned. And then we had, basically, I want to call it the minor leagues, where we were able to call the alternate in and have him serve as a regular commissioner. So that's why we have 2 alternate positions still open, and then 2 planning commission seats open.
Madam Mayor and Council, just to add to that too, the alternate also, in the case that a planning commissioner cannot attend one of the meetings, they do also step in on occasion to meetings like that, which did happen on occasion from time to time with vacations or illnesses or whatever, so that does happen from time to time as well.
And so they're encouraged to attend so they know what's going on. It's also kind of a training ground, if you will. They can learn a lot. And then, as Mr. Abel pointed out, they actually have full voting power if they are seated as a commissioner in the event we are missing a commissioner or two. And so that's been working out quite well. So with that, I would make a recommendation that we appoint all four, that we appoint the two existing planning commissioners back to their commission, Mr. Vickery and Mr. Pettis as the seated commissioners, and then we appoint Mr. Stone and Mr. Raven, I think, Raven, as our alternates, and have them come do the learning curve, and then eventually move them into the Planning Commission as full commissioners.
So moved.
Okay. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Do you need a first alternate and a second alternate, or is it kind of?
We could do it in, however you'd like to do it, either the order they're received or however you'd like to do it.
So the first alternate would be the one that would be called first, if you will, and the second alternate be called second.
Yep.
Could we ask the applicants if they have a choice,
Sure.
a preference?
It's up to the council.
I would say, if who has the most time, that would be the question. You're not retired. Okay, that answers that question. I would like to then suggest that we designate Mr. Stone as a first alternate and Mr. Raven as a second alternate for the alternate positions, if that's okay with the council.
Yeah, can I make just one comment?
Sure.
Madam Mayor? To those who are the alternates, it is a great opportunity to get involved, and actually two of us council members were planning commissioners at one point. That's where I started, and then Councilmember Molitor as well. And back then we didn't have the alternates, and we just recently adopted that, and I'm happy to see it because it does provide an opportunity to get involved, at least get one foot in for that, and opportunities do present themselves. As the mayor said, we did have one person move out of the city, and there have been other situations that have created openings as well. So wish you the best of luck with that.
I want to thank all four of you gentlemen, all five of you gentlemen, for applying for these positions. Your service is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to working with all of you. So thank you very much. So with that, I'll get back to my agenda here. That does conclude our business items, and so we will move on to our administrative items. We have staff report, City Administrator, Mr. Barone.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I just have one item. I'm just giving you a short update that we are now scheduling our next set of labor negotiation sessions with our three unions. As you know, all three labor contracts expired at the end of 2017, and so I've got actually two scheduled. I'm still waiting for the third one to get back to me, but those will be happening here in the next week. I don't think we'll have a contract settled before, but you never know, before the next city council meeting, but we're going to try to make some progress here. It's very difficult to get together around the holidays. There's so many people missing, so many parts of the equation are not there. So we did have a chance to discuss our initial meetings with the unions, with our personnel committee mid-month in December, and so we kind of know where we're going on when we get together again with each of these labor unions. So that's my item for tonight. And Ms. Tabor's got a couple of announcements.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I just wanted to give an update regarding our hiring and postings that we had. So our CSO position was posted. We do have interviews scheduled towards the end of this week. We have 7 applicants that we're interviewing for that position. And then our public works position, if you recall, we had a discussion at the last meeting that we would post it for the original 2 weeks, see what came through, do an assessment, and maybe extend that. So I'm in the process of assessing the 6 applicants that have applied currently, and then we'll make a decision about whether or not we need to extend that just based on their qualifications. So that's where we're at with our hiring.
It's always difficult to get people to apply for jobs around the holidays. That's usually not their first priority. So.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So be wise to consider reposting that.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other staff reports or comments? With that, we'll move on to council reports. So I'll start here. On the 6th of December, myself and Councilmember Mortenson and some of our staff, along with a resident that lives over off of Preserve Boulevard or Preserve Drive, I'm not sure, over near Deer Creek Road, we had a meeting. There's several residents over in that area that are concerned about a property and that has excessive vehicles. We're talking 40, sometimes even 50 or more vehicles. And these aren't just cars, they're ambulances, they're fire trucks, we're talking, and it's becoming a real nuisance. The problem that we have is that the resident claims that he's not operating a business. However, others feel differently. And the police have looked into it, and they have nothing that they can do to remedy the situation. So when we talked, we said, well, maybe what we need to do is take a look at a number of our ordinances. Maybe there's a nuisance ordinance, maybe there's a new ordinance that we create. But how can we resolve this? Because it's really a neighborhood eyesore, huge. And I'm also concerned about the like oil leaking into the ground. These are all private wells, and once you have oil leaking into the ground, that can easily seep into private residential wells. They're not as deep. So I have that concern. And then just the activity that's going on and all of this. So the reason I bring this up is because I'd like to see if the council is interested in directing staff to look into some type of an ordinance to try and remedy this situation.
I just have a question. What, does he give a reason for having all the vehicles? And are the vehicles operational, or are they junk vehicles?
They are all licensed because they have to be according to our ordinance. But whether they're all operational or not, we have no way of knowing that without driving them or starting them up, which we're not allowed to do. And there's no reason that I'm aware of that he's given why he has these. He doesn't really have to give us a reason legally.
Are they his vehicles?
Well,
We believe so. We believe that he actually buys them. What we asked the police to do, I'd say late summer, early fall, was to check into it, do some investigations to see if there was any way to determine if he was actually running a business, quote business, and if he was, that there's an opportunity for the city to insert itself and kind of shut down his business. But they were not able to find anything. So now we met with the staff and the mayor and council member met with him just to kind of hear him out. We exchanged emails and stuff over the summer, and they're very cordial, and so people are...
This was a resident.
Correct.
Not the
So,
owner
not
of the
that
property.
person. So, but the police have been out there a number of times to check on whether all the vehicles there are legit, maybe. And when they're not, the owner of the property gets them up to date and then does what he needs to do in order to comply. So he understands how the game is played a little bit. So, but this is I think a different attempt to try to see if we can figure out what's going there.
So there's, as far as waterfront goes, there's a limitation to how many watercrafts you can have based on your lake shore, but there isn't any ordinance that limits the number of automobiles that you can have on your property currently, is what you're saying.
Correct. That is
Correct. Correct.
So,
And
go ahead.
the other thing the owner could do is actually apply for a conditional use permit and then operate his business legitimately. But because he's operating this type of a business with all of these vehicles, there are concerns, like I said. One, the neighbors are concerned about property values, and two, I'm concerned about the oil runoff and that kind of issue. But if he had a CUP, then the city could state how many vehicles he could have, but he refuses to apply for a CUP, and he also refuses, the property owner states that he's not running a business. So then we have to find a different.
Well, and if you're running a business out of your home and you're a CPA and clients are coming to visit with you in your office inside or something,
don't
and there's
need it,
that,
yeah.
that seems less invasive to your
Right.
neighbors, but it would sound to me that I would like to have it be on a next either a work session or council meeting, or have the staff come back to us. Is there, would it be premature at this point for you to provide us an address that we could go and drive past ourselves, or would that be
Well, I think,
when it would come forth in a ordinance?
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council, I guess the point of the discussion tonight is to see whether the council wants to have a more detailed discussion at a future work session about this. I don't know that we'd necessarily run and start drafting ordinances. But there's definitely much more information that would need to be talked about, and how it is pursued if all of the council members agree that they want to discuss it more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking to find out if you're interested in having us pursue it.
Okay.
To Patricia's statement, I would encourage that you drive by it. It is right on Deer Creek Road. You will not miss it. It is the historical round barn, red barn. And it is on the west side of Deer Creek Road. And just one other note, this resident on Deer Creek with this home is the newer resident. All the other residents have been there for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at somebody that just came in and has created this environment, while all the others have been there for a number of years. So.
And it's one thing if you've got 4 kids in high school and everybody's driving a car, and
Right. Yeah, that's
both of
not what
the,
this is.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not that.
This
Yeah.
isn't what it is. So, all right, so,
I think it'd be fine to talk about it in a work session.
yeah, I think, and we'll bring back more details, so. Mr. Molitor?
We can discuss it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll do that. And then on the 12th of December, I attended the public safety meeting, and then also there was a wonderful Rotary luncheon at the Lafayette Club on the 12th. And then I also had the opportunity and privilege of being at the police awards and presented our officers with a number of awards, and then also attended the WCC Holiday After Hours event, and then we also had a homeowners association meeting with staff and myself on the 13th. So that kind of rounded off my December.
Excellent.
You're next.
I attended participated in the personnel committee meeting with the discussion regarding the union contracts. So that's it as far as participation, but I do have a request for an item that I would like us to discuss further at probably at a work session based on my own observation and requests that we've received from a neighbor there, as far as bringing the Halstead and Farm Hill Road project back for discussion. Not that we're not going to change, but now that it's been paved, guardrails have gone in, and I don't know to what degree the other council members have driven past. I know that they were required by I think it's the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District or Lake Minnetonka.
No, they're required by MSA.
MSA.
MnDOT. Mm-hmm.
MnDOT,
The
okay.
money that Minnesota, yeah.
I see, okay. And, we're not going to take them out, but is there a way that we can make them a little more aesthetically pleasing by planting some landscape around them or something to that effect? And then want to continue the discussion on the roundabout, if there's any way to make that a little wider, that when I drove past it before it snowed, it seemed fairly tight. I did drive around it on Monday, and it seems wider with snow, but that's because it's all plowed out wider and that sort of thing. So, and I have more to say, but I'll save it. Just would like to request if
We could
bring that back.
bring it back at our next work session. Maybe staff would have an opportunity to do some research, find out what other options there might be, what they would cost, how that would be covered in terms of cost. Maybe bring back some information regarding the roundabout, how to use it properly. What are some of the other things? Maybe we could have some discussion about some plantings to kind of, like you said, create a little more rural look to it versus what's there. And
that was pretty much it. Pretty much the guardrails and the roundabout. When I first drove it after it had been paved and saw the guardrails, my reaction was, I don't remember talking about guardrails. but I thought maybe I just don't recall. There's a lot of information that we talked, but they really jumped out at me. Having it been a gravel road that just rolled into the weeds or the grass or whatever's on the side, and now there are these very apparent guardrails in 4 different places, 3 different places. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, required, we have to do it, but can we make them a little more aesthetically pleasing without spending a ton of money?
okay, so we'll bring that back next time. That's okay?
Sure.
All right. And Ms. Mortenson, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Ms. Mortenson?
I attended the meeting with Mayor Whalen as well regarding the Deer Creek Road issue, and I attended the WCC meeting before Christmas. They had a social event at Lord Fletcher's, and so it was just very nice, very social, and got to see a lot of people, and it was very, very nice.
Attended the last LMCD meeting of the year. Pretty quick meeting. There was a variance request, but was taken off the agenda that day, so ended up making the meeting quite short.
Is that a first?
It's relatively speaking short,
Yes.
yes. And yes, it is a first. I think we've got a couple things coming up here that are going to be a little more time-consuming in terms of no-wake zones and some other variances. So.
Mr. Molitor, do you happen to have the date for the Save the Lake banquet?
I
do you know that yet?
not have that yet.
Okay.
No.
It's usually like in February.
I've not heard.
Okay.
I have not heard. I'm not on the Save the Lake committee.
Okay.
We just sent out the fundraising letter end of the year. I've not heard any talk about the banquet, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, don't know.
If you find out, can report back next time. All right, thank you. Ms. Bruce?
No meetings to report, but I do have an agenda item request.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a meeting agenda item or a work session, but we've had a gentleman approach the council twice now asking us to consider rebidding the professional services agreement that the city has for engineering services. And at the last council meeting, he informed us that he had done a data request on and he reported all of his information when he came before us. But he also said that our professional services agreement with WSB hasn't been rebid since 2004, and I think that was information that he got from our city clerk. And that's been 13 years, and I think it's time that we do that, just to make sure that we're doing a good job of making sure that the rates that we're paying for the amount of work that we do for engineering services is reasonable and we're getting a good deal. And I'd also recommend that when we do this, that we make sure that we get rates, not ranges of rates, from engineering companies that we put out the RFP to.
Well, so you're suggesting we want to do an RFP, and I'm not sure that that's what the council will decide on.
Well, and perhaps it's a work agenda that we can talk about it. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm just raising the issue and making a request for an agenda item, either a work session or a council meeting agenda item.
Council?
I'm okay with it being a work session item. I'm not saying I want to go out for an RFP, but.
Okay.
I would agree with Patricia.
Okay, Mr. Molitor?
Yeah, I'm fine with it as a work session.
Okay, work session. Again, we've got a number of items on the agenda for work sessions, so not sure when it will occur, but we'll give it to staff and they'll figure out a time frame.
Good.
All right. Anything else? With that, that concludes, I believe, our agenda items. And we can go home, maybe.
I make a motion that we end the meeting.
Adjourn? Okay.
Adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Who seconded that? Ms. Bruce? Okay. Ms. Bruce made that second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much and have a good evening.